I think most people dream about what they want. But unfortunately, there are very few people that actually are willing to take the action to go out and get it, right? It's a lot of time it's fear, right? It's like fear of the unknown, uncertainty, all those kind of things. Um, but what drives me is like the fear of like regret and not doing something. Like I actually don't believe in the idea of like being humble.
I'm so happy you're here. Happiness Solved is the place where we explore everything you need to become the best possible version of you. This is Sandee Sgarlata, and today I've got some exciting news for our dedicated listeners. We've just launched our exclusive members only portal. This is your ticket to a world of additional content designed to deepen your understanding and engagement with the Happiness Solved mission. To learn more about all of the exciting benefits, stay tuned until the end of the episode where I will explain in greater detail. For those interested now, head over to happinesssolved.supercast.com. Today is another amazing conversation, so let's get started. Justin Mosley, such a pleasure to have you on my show. Great to see you again. How's everything going in your neck of the woods?
Awesome. So still living in sunny South Florida, weather is perfect. So happy days.
Yeah. So for the audience, Justin Mosley is the founder and CEO of Leicestermore. Did I say that correctly?
You did not, but that's all right. Great attempt. So Leicestermore Capital.
Leicestermore. So it's that spelling that's kind of like Gloucester.
Yeah.
You
So it's
see, like
yeah. So it's the English spelling, and when I got there, like my wife's English, and I was like, "What the heck is that word?" But lo and behold, when I started my company, it was either I wanted to put together Baltimore and Leicestershire, and that's how you got Leicestermore Capital.
Leicestermore. Okay, got it. All right, because you're from Baltimore, which was great. We
Yeah.
were just having a conversation about that before we hit record. So we're going to get into what you're doing because I love how I just love everything you're doing and that you've got like educational platforms to help people learn about creating this financial freedom that we're all striving for. Can you just give us a background of your story and how you got to where you are today? Because you're a Navy vet. I mean, you worked on a nuclear carrier, spent 2 years in Japan. You've got a really interesting background. So how did you get into this?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll try to boil all that down into a really high level. But like you said, I'm originally from Baltimore. Ended up going to the Navy. Thought I wanted to be an engineer. After spending time in the military, quickly realized that was not the path for me. But I enjoyed it. Right, the Navy allowed me to spend a lot of time overseas, see a lot of the world very early on. So after fast forward, getting out, went to college, fell in love with Florida, met my wife when I was working in Tampa in corporate, and she was English. So immediately fell in love, and she said, "Hold on, wait, don't get too attached because I got to go back over to England here in a little bit." So when that time came, quit my job and moved to England. I guess I just really enjoyed spending time overseas and stuff and traveling. So I did that for 2 years. We lived over there, and I went to grad school. That was my only ticket into the country. Surprise, surprise! Like I couldn't just walk over there. They were like, "Actually, need a reason to be here." And during grad school, that's when I really started thinking about, what do I want to do when we get back to the States? We kind of had a hard time when we were going to come back, and real estate became that vehicle and really the thing that I was passionate about. So started from there, and I started kind of building my businesses.
Nice. And as I was telling before we hit record, I've gotten some of your emails and I love, like I was reading one I remember about a boutique hotel.
Yeah.
That seems like not only like a passion project, but how cool is that? So what is it that drives you to want to do some of these projects? It does it have to do with like your own personal satisfaction, or is there like a bigger picture in mind? Obviously financial reasons, but
Yeah, I mean, I think it was first driven financially, right? I started off in kind of the multifamily world when I first got into real estate. For people that don't know, it's buying apartment complexes, right? Big buildings, and it's very much a team sport. And I got into it because I just wanted to go big, and it just seemed like a really smart thing to do, right? People always need to live, so real estate housing always just kind of made sense. But I kind of quickly realized in doing that there wasn't a whole lot of cash flow. A lot of that in real estate, there's so many different ways and different opportunities in the space, but I started to think about what are my actual goals and what I'm trying to accomplish. And then that kind of pivoted me into the kind of, the boutique hotels, single family homes, which I do now, which is kind of, I call it the STR space, right? Short-term rental, putting your property on Airbnb, VRBO, that kind of space. And what that evolved into was, buying much larger homes, creating great experiences. And like the next iteration of that was the hotel space. So finding those smaller hotels that aren't being operated really well, but then giving, a guest a great experience. And what that was for me, it's kind of a cash flow play. I just deeply believe in the ideas of financial freedom and controlling your time. And it's kind of all a hodgepodge of those ideas of what led me into, the space that I'm in now.
Love it. So that's what the strmillionaires.com stands for, short-term rentals or short-term
Yep,
rentals.
short-term rentals millionaire. I wanted to make it as obvious as possible. Like, this is how I became a millionaire in the short-term rental space. And if you want to learn how to do it yourself, we created an education and coaching platform for people that want to get in and do it themselves. So it's really cool. And it's just about community and being around people that don't necessarily think the traditional way and want to find something different than maybe the corporate route, or it's simple as we have guys in the program that make a lot of money in their tech sales jobs or something and want to figure out how to grow their wealth by buying assets, but also shield their income because there's a lot of tax benefits when you buy real estate.
Right, right. So what are the basics, if you could give any sort of basics of getting into the short-term real estate market? What do people need to understand, if you could drop a couple of golden nuggets?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is it is its own kind of world, right? I think most times when people think about real estate, there's just so many different areas that you can get into. But for me, one of the best parts about the short-term rental space is, number one, there's a really low barrier to entry, right? Most people only really understand the space from the lens of kind of Airbnb. But for us, it's really about creating, it's like half hospitality, half real estate. So you have the real estate, which is kind of the asset, right? That appreciates, give you all the benefits. But then you have the hospitality side that really will increase your cash flow and allow you to actually bring in a significant amount of money each month when you operate it the right way. So at its core, it's just about getting into something real estate, like as a very easy way. Like if you're approved for a loan to buy a house, right? Given that you're buying in the right areas and all these kind of things, you can operate the right way. I think it's a really great way for people that want to build wealth in real estate to get in versus, getting into office or apartment buildings. It can definitely be done, but you don't need a team of people around you to do it. You could do it yourself or with a partner, and it can be very lucrative. I just don't believe in the 401k kind of stuff, and people can feel how they feel about that. But I like to have control of my destiny, and just giving to a 401k account and just letting that sit and hoping that I have enough money to retire on is not the path that I wanted to take.
So for you, how has building this empire that you're creating and building, how has that helped you from a mindset perspective in just seeing life differently? Because we all strive for that financial freedom. What has that really done for you? For those out there that are like thinking that that's the be all end all, what has that done for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's given me control over my time and effectively my destiny, right? And it's funny, well, I actually think it's reversed, right? Like you have to kind of start with the mindset first, and that's what helps you kind of be successful in the space. So, I was really big, and I think it's just maybe my upbringing, but also the military, principles like, discipline, consistency. I realized very early on, like I don't have any true special skills at all. Like, like wasn't, super doing really well in school or, had any special talents or athletic ability and stuff. Like I do most things pretty well, but like nothing extraordinary, right? But I found out very early on, if you're consistent, which most people aren't about things, or very disciplined, you can really get whatever you want if you're focused, you have a vision. And this was my vision. And to kind of backtrack, a big driving force for that, not only my wife, because she's an entrepreneur as well, but I have 4 kids. And the idea of like being trapped in the office when there's school trips or games and stuff like that. Like I was really committed to like not being held back because somebody else controlled my time. And really that's what it boils down to. Like I wanted to have freedom and autonomy over my own life. And that's what this gave to me.
Love it. I'm so happy that you said that about the mindset. So just to reiterate for the audience, you worked on your mindset and you had a healthy mindset and you knew that consistency was the thing, but then you had your vision.
Yeah.
And it was that vision, right, that you actually manifested because of your mindset, because of your consistency, right? Because we can have the vision, but if you're not taking action, it's not going to happen. Can you
100%.
talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah,
about
100%.
how you manage that?
Yeah. Like, and so taking action is another one. Like, I think most people dream about what they want. But unfortunately, there are very few people that actually are willing to take the action to go out and get it. Right. And I think, I don't know what the reason is. Well, I probably do understand. It's a lot of time it's fear, right? It's like fear of the unknown, uncertainty, all those kind of things. But what drives me is like the fear of like regret and not doing something is much greater for me than the idea of like trying something and failing, right? Like that's why the mindset piece is so strong, because like I don't associate a failure, and people like to always use these like fancy terms like you don't fail, like it's just a lesson or learn for it. Like no, it's a failure, right? It's not a big deal. But if you don't associate it with who you are, like me going out and doing something and it not working and I fail, like it's just okay. I just need to try something else or do something different. So that's a part of the mindset thing, because then it's a disassociation between who you are as a person and whatever failures you may have. It didn't work. So let me try something else. And that was really the pivotal piece of like, okay, I did a bunch of different things before I was able to be successful in this space. But that didn't deter me from continuing to try. And that was a huge thing for me.
Yeah. Oh, I love that you said that, because yeah, I've been doing a lot of work, and this year especially, and just focusing on being conscious, right? Because you're either conscious or you're in your ego. And when you break that down even further, consciousness is love and ego is fear. So we really only have two states of being. You've got fear. And we all know that when you try to do things from a space of fear, it usually doesn't work out very well. And we don't recognize it, but when we're in that flow, that's when we're in that state of love, a state of consciousness. So as an entrepreneur and having, all of your properties and everything, life happens, right? Life happens while we're busy making other plans. And we get curveballs thrown our way. We get unexpected things come up. What is it that you do to help you kind of stay on track? Because, at the end of the day, you've got to take care of your properties and everything, but you've got this going on over here. How do you manage that with your mindset so that it doesn't stop things and stop that flow that we all, that groove that we get into?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things for me is really just, it sounds cliche, but it's true, right? Like controlling what you can control and just starting every day is kind of a brand new day. Like I love, I don't know how familiar you are with kind of like stoicism and that kind of philosophy and stuff. And really just not associating, you know, negative or even positive emotions to certain events that happen, right? They're just things. And once you kind of realize like, okay, like you can kind of control whatever situation means or doesn't mean, it becomes a lot easier to kind of manage like the roller coaster, especially in real estate, right? Like you have to take a lot of the emotion, wow, that's beautiful, off of doing these things. Like I don't even know what triggers it. It just does it sometimes.
Okay,
Like,
for those that are just listening, when Justin said that, all of these like fireworks started going off in the background.
it clearly Zoom just knew that I was saying something very profound. They were like, you know
Right.
what, I need to go ahead and celebrate this. But yeah, it's that, right? It's understanding that, if you have a goal and a mission, like just keep pushing forward and you have to just kind of push through. And I deeply believe in that because nothing worth having is it's going to be challenging and you're going to have to go through stuff and you just have to face it and just attack it every day and understand that the next day you still have to do it all over again. And that's where the consistency piece comes in and the discipline to continue working. Like one thing that really helps me is people think I'm a lunatic, but I wake up every day, Sunday through Monday, or I guess Saturday through Sunday, at 4:30, and I work out every single day. And that is kind of my way of like controlling the thing I can control, and it helps me. It makes me feel better. There's nothing that I face throughout the day that's harder than, or suckier than getting up when you don't feel like it and getting in a workout, but you always feel amazing after, and it just makes the day feel a lot easier than it would otherwise.
Well, and you've also have one thing to celebrate that you've already
Yeah,
accomplished.
for sure.
Yeah, but I love that you had talked about looking at events with no positive or negative, and it's almost like looking at things with neutrality,
Mhm.
which can be a challenging thing to accomplish. And what I heard you saying too is that you're building your resilience up by pushing through and going through these things. You're building that resilience up. And I want to just kind of hear your thoughts on this, because there's been a lot of talk lately about how, we're raising a generation of children, and you've got 4 kids. I only have one, and he's already a young adult at the age of 23. And I can already look back and think, okay, that probably wasn't the best way to handle it, but we try our best, right? There's no instruction manual. But I want to have this conversation because there's so many situations that are coming up, and so many parents are doing what they feel is the best thing. So I'm not here to shame anybody and make anybody wrong. It's just how, when you get to be an adult and you're trying to build that resilience, what do you think in terms of with the kids these days, and we're just being overprotective, and they're not having that ability to experience any sort of hurt or have an opportunity to even build that resilience muscle, because resilience is a muscle, right? You got to build it, and you build it. So what are your thoughts? And as a father of 4, what advice can you give to help parents to kind of cut that umbilical cord a little bit, a little bit at a time, so that we're not raising the generation of kids that are so afraid of anything?
Yeah, no, it's good. Like, I definitely don't do advice because I definitely don't have the answers. But what I do is, it's something I think pretty deeply about. And, I don't know what your exact upbringing was, but like, I know my children are growing up in a very different, environment than I grew up in. Right. And I think some of what has helped me become so resilient and just be willing to be relentless, because that's what I really call it. It's like, no matter what's going on, I'm going to attack every single day, was a lot of the struggles or challenges that I grew up in. Whereas my kids don't necessarily face those, but I'm still conscious in the aspect of like, forcing them to do things that make them uncomfortable. I think we do live in a society now where, even in the verbiage we use, the school systems, it's almost this narrative of, if something makes you feel uncomfortable, that gives you the right to tell somebody to stop doing it, right? And I really teach my kids that, like, that's not the way we handle things, and you need to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And it's a lot easier said than done, but I think it's really important that they do that. And that's what I try to do. But but it's tough, right? Like, I grew up in Baltimore, running around, and definitely not the safest environment in the world. And we stayed out until the lights came on, and maybe I stayed out past the lights came on. Right. And I live in Jupiter, where I don't even let my kids out of my sight. So I still participate in some ways with kind of that, not necessarily helicopter parenting, but in some ways, yeah, right. Like, just because you're just conscious of it. But I do
Of
try to
course.
put them in, yeah, but I do try to put them in situations where I let them figure it out and then talk about it too. I'm a real big believer in communication and them being able to express themselves, because I want them to be able to come to me, and even if I want them to figure it out, like, I want them to work through that. What does that mean, right? Like, and also help with their, self-talk. Like, one of my biggest things, or I think people struggle with, is like the confidence thing. And
Yeah.
if you build confidence in yourself and trust yourself, I think that helps out with all those things down the road. So it was a bit of a tangent about a bunch of stuff, but it's tough for sure.
Oh yeah, no, you said so many great things, and I think the confidence thing is so, so important. And I know today with some of the athletes that I work with, and even when I'm, watching any sort of sports on television, that's one of the things that you see, that even the most elite athletes out there are still struggling with their confidence. And so I always say to anybody that I talk to, it's like, well, if elite athletes struggle with confidence, why do you think that you wouldn't have to, right? Because it's just part of our human nature. Like
Right.
we all. So what is one golden nugget that you can drop of how you help yourself to keep building that confidence? Because sometimes it is a daily thing that we have to keep building ourselves back up. So what do you do to build that confidence up in yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm really big on just positive self-talk, and also it's weird. I've had this conversation with my wife. We talk about these things with my brother, and I'm just, it actually goes a little bit of, I guess, conventional wisdom or speak, but like I actually don't believe in the idea of like being humble. Like not being arrogant, but this notion of like we should never celebrate ourselves or talk highly of ourselves is something I just don't believe in. And I almost teach my kids that too, right? Like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you have to rely on you to be your biggest cheerleader. Because if you don't, you can't look for it externally. So, and that's something that helped me out tremendously. It's like I don't need you to believe in me because I believe in me. And I think that's really helped me out, if probably more than anything else, because now I'm not worried about how you feel about me or waiting for your approval. It's purely, I know I'm going to do it, and either I'll show you or you can come along and enjoy the ride with me. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's interesting way of kind of living life, and it's helped me out, and it probably makes me a lot happier than most people. And I just enjoyed the journey, and I know that I'll figure it out, and that comes from the kind of internal, and I'm not looking for it externally.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And you said so many great things there. And it is important because I feel like, I know for me in the generation that I was raised in, you don't talk about yourself because then you're bragging.
Yeah,
And it's
which is
like, oh,
crazy.
she's just bragging about herself. Well, no, you know, and it's so important to, in order to build that confidence, to be proud of what you've accomplished.
Yeah,
And if other
and
people,
talk
yeah,
about yourself in a positive way, because I think in some ways it's like an unintended consequence, right? Like you don't talk about yourself highly, and right, like there's obviously extremes, right? So this is a very
right,
nuanced conversation, but I just deeply don't believe in that, because I think a lot of reasons why people want you to do that is because what it means to them, right? Like I don't want you to talk high about yourself, because then it becomes I'm uncomfortable because maybe I'm unhappy with my choices that I'm making, right? And you see that in social media, and I joke with my wife all the time, right? Because like I just got into social media probably a year and a half ago, so I was building my businesses, and I love getting out there, shaking hands and kissing babies and stuff. But at some point, you realize like you have to, if you really want to grow something, you got to get on social media, have a
yeah,
footprint, and all that. And it's funny how at the very beginning, people were like, "Oh yeah, that's amazing, gung ho," but the more kind of successful you get, the people start like kind of like not rooting for you as much or engaging in stuff, and a lot of people take that personally. But the reality is, it's like a lot of people don't want you to be more successful than them, because then it becomes a referendum on like what are they doing, right?
exactly.
And it might not always be mean spirited, but it's just like you understand that like that's a them thing. So I should not do or talk about myself highly or be really proud about my accomplishments just because it potentially makes somebody else feel bad.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Because at the end of the day, that's their problem, not yours.
100%, 100%.
And I was interviewing somebody the other day, and he was like, you start out online and you say you have your first 100 followers or 200 followers, or people that or
Mhm.
people that you're acquainted with, and you worry about what they think. But when have an online presence, don't worry about those 200 people, right? Because that's not your audience. Those
Yeah,
aren't the people that are going to buy your product. It's everybody else. So you have to, don't worry about what they think. But I know that's true. I mean, I see that all the time, that if I post a picture of me and my son, I get 150 likes.
yeah,
If I post a picture of me speaking at an event, I get 10 likes.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm
It's
like,
a bizarre thing, right? And
okay,
it doesn't even mean anything, but like I
no.
always think about it from like because I love I got into economics I studied because I like behavioral economics and it is very much like how the masses behave. So I'm always fascinated by it, like psychology. And like getting into social media has been the most interesting thing to me, right? Because how I approached it, and I'm still trying to learn the etiquette and what people do. It's like if I know you and I have a relationship with you, I don't even care what you're posting. I'm gonna like it. I'm gonna love it. I might even shoot. I might not even watch it, right? But I notice how even people with massive followings, right, will get like a tenth of likes or and it's weird how people engage with
Yes.
people and I'm trying to figure it out but you're 100% right like I
Yeah.
can say hey I just took down this massive property and stuff and like it's crickets right but yeah I post a picture of my son and stuff like that then it's like hundreds or thousands of and it's just a weird thing how people kind of engage so I find it fascinating though.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that you just have to ignore. You
Oh yeah.
almost post and ignore, and you don't worry about, you know, what people are saying and things like that. And I've been really lucky that, but that I haven't had any negative comments. But I have had comments that were like, that's interesting, because sometimes you wonder why people are making a comment.
Yeah.
Like I interviewed somebody, and I've gotten a lot of comments on YouTube because of her presence. And there's only been a couple that people love her, and they're like, but the lady interviewing blah 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 blah. And I'm like, why are you attacking me?
Correct.
Like, I'm interviewing her. Like, like I was privileged enough to interview her, and you want to make a negative comment about me? I'm like, what did I do? And you
But
just have to
that's the
like,
world we live in, right?
I
And but this
know.
is why it goes back to confidence, right? Because like even though
Yeah.
I identify these things, it's interesting to me. So I like to think about it and stuff. And when you're growing the business, like you need to be conscious of okay, what's working, what's not working, why, right? You have to go
Right.
down that rabbit hole. But and this is why I'm so big on confidence with especially with my children, because the approach of like trying to shelter them from this stuff, like it's
Right.
that's a lost cause. For me, it's how do I make sure that my kids are as like secure and confident in themselves so that when they do encounter these things, whether in life or online, that it's not, it's going to suck for a second, but like they're resilient enough to be like, okay, that's not a big deal. And I keep it moving. Right. Like, so
Right.
it doesn't define who they are. And I think it hurts a lot of people. Like this stuff, like deeply causes pain to a lot of people. And it's because they may not have the most like, highest self-worth or esteem, self-esteem and stuff. So I think it's so critical to make sure that you are happy with who you are. And that's going to help you go so much farther because the bigger you get, you're going to encounter that. Like, salute to all the celebrities out there that put
I
themselves out
know.
there. What they're doing, like, man, like how vicious the internet can be. Like, it always sucks. Like, nobody wants to hear it. But if you're happy with yourself, like, you can get over it much quicker
Oh
than you
yeah.
would.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, is there anything else? And actually, let's just talk really quickly about your programs, because I want to make sure that we're highlighting some of those, because I think that so many people want to invest in real estate, probably don't want to be a real estate broker or agent, but there's lots of other ways. So can you talk about some of the programs and what people go through and what they learn and the results that they get?
Yeah, for sure. So let me kind of break down my businesses. It's kind of twofold. So, Leicestermore Capital is my actual like investing firm, right? So people will invest their capital similar to like investing in the stock market or something like that to get a return on the money they put in. And it's a great, really for people that want to get exposure, maybe diversify their portfolio, not just be in the stock market or, maybe in crypto, whatever the case may be, and get a really great return for their money. The STR Millionaires program was really born out of the idea of people from Baltimore, where I'm from, the military, that saw what I was doing and was like, hey, like, I really want to get into it. Like, how can I invest in this and a third? But the reality is some of those guys didn't have 50, 100, 200K to invest in my deals, right? Because I could raise, a couple million, a million, a couple $1 million, depending on the deal. So what I kind of found, and this is my wife and I, we were like, well, why don't we help people do it themselves? because truly the greatest benefit you're going to get from real estate is direct ownership, right? Like, that's where you get like depreciation. That's where you get the wealth building stuff. And when you invest just your capital into a deal, that's just a return generally, right? Which is still great, right? If you're a lawyer or an attorney, like you're looking somewhere to put your money outside of a bank. But yeah, so when you come into the program, it's really about the community. It's about being around people that, believe in the idea that you can do this, especially relatively quickly if you have the right course and are around the right folks. So it's kind of an education course. So it's modules. And then there's a layer up, which is kind of the mastermind of actually being on coaching calls. And I have a high performance coach and I do strategic coaching lessons. But, our folks come in and, within 90 days can, buy the first property, understand how to set it up and cash flow and really supplement, either add to their income. And there's some people that they don't love what they do, right? They don't want to work for somebody and they're happy with, buying 4 or 5 properties, and that cash flow per month can replace the income that they have. So it's all about finding what your goals are and what you want to accomplish, and then creating a roadmap so you can get there as efficiently as possible. And really that's what it's all about. It's like, how do you reach your goals, your income goals, using real estate while building, wealth along the way.
Nice. All right. Is there anything else that you want to share with the audience before we finish up?
I mean, just based off of our conversations, like I just encourage anyone out there, and I deeply believe this, like if you have something, a passion, a vision, something you want to accomplish, like go after it. Like life is short and it's cliche as hell, but it's so true, right? Like, I mean, you were telling me about your mom and the situation and stuff. Like we don't have a whole lot of time here. And a lot of people's decisions are driven by fear. And I've yet to meet anyone in old age that has said, hey, I regret the stuff that I did, but I hear it all the time when they regret the things that they didn't do. And I definitely live by that as a principle. And that's why I go after it. And it's paid off.
Love it. Justin, thank you so much. For everybody, if you're interested in his programs, there's a link in the show notes for his website and a link to his programs. And check it out, everybody, because I tell you, real estate is the way to go. It's always has been for decades. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed today's conversation, and as promised, I'd like to give you more details of what you can expect as a member of the Happiness Solved exclusive community. First, you'll have access to a treasure trove of extra podcast episodes. These episodes dive deeper into the topics we discuss, featuring additional expert interviews only found here. But that's not all. As a member, you'll also get access to a series of mindset training sessions. These recordings are tailored to help you understand the how and why your mindset is the most important asset you have, empowering you to achieve your personal and professional goals. And for those of you looking to find a moment of peace in your busy lives, we've got something special. Exclusive guided meditations. These sessions are crafted to help you relax, refocus, and recharge. Whether you're a meditation guru or just starting out, there's something here for everyone. Becoming a member is more than just accessing extra content. It's about joining a community of like-minded individuals, all on a journey to live life to its fullest and become the best possible version of you. So how can you join? It's simple. Go to happinesssolved.supercast.com and sign up. Don't miss out on this opportunity to deepen your journey with us. Again, that's happinesssolved.supercast.com, and it will also be in the show notes. I am so grateful you're a part of our Happiness Solved family, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for your continued support. Again, I am so grateful for you, and I hope that you and your family are healthy and safe, and that your lives are filled with peace, joy, and happiness. Take care, everyone.